From Hanoi, we took a group tour to Ha Long Bay. The bus ride was a pretty easy 2.5 hours across the Red River and through the Red River Delta, one of Vietnam's 2 major agricultural areas, along with the Mekong Delta down south of Saigon. As we approached the coast, we could see the legendary limestone karsts on the horizon. The first stop was at a pearl shop, which had some mildly interesting displays on pearl farming. But inside was so crowded, we mostly just stayed with the bus, waiting for the rest of the group. Moving on, the bus headed toward the port. And it became clear that tours of Ha Long Bay are a massive operation. This area can hold over 100 tour vessels, and official government numbers put the number of visitors in 2022 at over 11 million, with a 2023 goal of 14 million. We'd booked a tour with Royal Palace Cruise because we'd wanted a smaller, more traditional looking boat at a mid-range price. As we approached our vessel, we were given a warm welcome by the crew, and they loaded our bags while we moved to the dining room for orientation. We'd booked an ocean view cabin on the upper deck, which was cozy, and the queen bed was pretty comfortable, much better than our Rhine River cruise bed. We loved the all-wood decor. It was just the aesthetic we were hoping for. As our boat continued away from port, we got our first good look at the karst formations that made Ha Long Bay famous. From the port island, the formations dot the sea surrounding Cat Ba Island. There are 2 major bodies of water, Ha Long Bay and Ḓàn Nhi Bay. We'd booked a 3-day, 2-night cruise for 2 reasons. First, Ha Long Bay is where all the 1-day and 1-night cruises go, so it's the most crowded. Ḓàn Nhi Bay is farther from port and only 2-day cruises visited. Also, based on what we'd read and seen of the 1-night cruises, the more interesting stuff is on the 2-night itinerary. One minor disappointment: the website showed the traditional sails deployed, but we never saw them. They're clearly only for decorative photo ops. The limestone karst formations are spectacular. The area was a shallow sea 250 million years ago, and the karsts were formed over 200 million years. UNESCO has recognized their geological significance and value, but the formations that we saw in Palawan, Philippines are geologically identical to Ha Long Bay, with a small fraction of the tourist traffic. We ate lunch soon after boarding, enjoying the view as we went along. In general, the food on the cruise was very good. Dishes were served per table, except the 2 breakfast buffets, with small portions for special dietary needs. Beverages were extra, but reasonably priced, and we never felt like there wasn't enough. After lunch, our first stop was at an actual operational pearl farm, much more impressive than the earlier pearl shop. We got a better idea of how the farming process actually works, especially when we got in a kayak and went out to see the large-scale setups firsthand. Our next stop was at Titop Island, the main island for all Ha Long Bay tours. The statue is of German Titov, a Soviet cosmonaut and second human to orbit the Earth, who visited North Vietnam in 1962. There were some basic facilities, including the only cell tower for miles, and a small beach and swimming area, though the water didn't seem clean enough for swimming. Steps wound up through the rocks and jungle, providing a bird's eye view of the area, including all the shipping vessels going to the nearby port of Haiphong, the biggest in Vietnam. We were on board and stationary by 6 p.m. per safety regulations, along with all the other ships, near to T-Top Island. Lights coming on as the sky darkened, settling in to an eerie peacefulness for the night. The thick morning mist made it feel like we had awoken on another world. We set off after breakfast back to T-Top Island, the fog sitting heavily over the bay. We would spend day 2 aboard a different boat with passengers from other boats, since our primary boats all had to go back to port to drop off the one-night passengers, who were the majority of cruisers. Heading south into Ḓàn Nhi Bay, we noticed a lot of debris floating in the water as we arrived on our first stop for the day. Climbing up to see Mae Kung Cave. Not a large cave, and it gets much cozier right away. But there are some beautiful formations, though the lighting sometimes wreaked havoc on the autofocus. Continuing up and out through another tight squeeze. Back into the daylight. And a pretty good view. The trail kept going up to a point with another beautiful vantage. Taking the outside trail back to the boat, there was at least some effort made to clean up the debris, but it didn't seem like it would make much of a dent. Moving on, we were glad we got to the small cave before the bigger group of boats arrived. According to our pilot, and news reports we've read since our tour, most of the trash is due to disgruntled villagers who were forced to relocate from their homes away from the UNESCO zone. They disassembled their village and dumped it in the water. There are to be larger scale cleaning operations, but it's a massive problem. We skipped the planned swimming stop because nobody wanted to go into the water. So who knows if and when things will actually be better. Moving farther south, the next stop was our favorite of the entire cruise. Like Mae Kung Cave, it's not on the one-night itinerary. Another kayak outing, though Avic chose another option. Dark and Bright Cave is a pair of rocky overhang channels on opposite sides of the cove. Dark Cave is so named because it's longer and darker in the middle. Bright Cave is shorter and much better lit. Twin Lagoon in Palawan, Philippines has a very similar but smaller structure that's a lot of fun to kayak or swim through. The lagoon on the other side of Dark Cave was beautiful, but our allotted time was ticking away. So I waved to Avic as we passed each other and rode back to base. Disappointed there wasn't more time to properly explore. Then it was the long ride back to T-Top Island, where there wasn't much to do but wait for our main boat to come pick us up. The next day, as we returned to port, we got to try our hand at making Vietnamese spring rolls, so named because they were originally specially for the Spring New Year's Festival. This wasn't new to us, but it was still a fun activity and a tasty result. On the whole, we were glad that we toured Ha Long Bay, but we have no desire to return. But we will return, hopefully many times, to the crystal clear, blue water, karst-filled beauty of Palawan.